When you look back in hindsight, everything is 2020. In hindsight, we make mistakes, we're learning from it. In hindsight, shaping yesterday and your tomorrow. In hindsight, it's so much clearer now.
What if your packed schedule isn't a sign of success, but a symptom of something deeper? Peggy Sullivan is an award-winning keynote speaker, author of Happiness is Your Responsibility, and the founder of She Can, a nonprofit for women's growth. With humor, heart, and hard-earned research, Peggy reveals how our obsession with busyness, spelled Busynesses, is costing us happiness, productivity, and purpose. Today on Hindsight the Podcast, she challenges us to trade burnout for balance and reclaim time as a tool for intentional living. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing great. My name is Peggy, and I am a busyness addict in recovery.
Oh, in recovery. I know that's right. And I
Yeah,
think a lot of
in
us are.
recovery.
Yeah. A lot of us are. And I really am excited to talk to you today because your take on the business, right? And how it kind of shields us from productivity maybe, or maybe, you know what I'm saying? I want to look at that because a lot of times I try to keep myself busy because it makes me feel that I'm being productive, right? But I really, believe now that I started looking at your website and started looking at some of the things that you have out that I've been looking at this all wrong. So, Peggy, thank you for coming on Hindsight the Podcast. And before we get started, this is Hindsight. So before we start getting into the strategies and the techniques and things to look out for and all of that, I want to know just a little bit about you. I touched on it. I think you wrote 2 books, maybe 16. I don't know. I saw 2. I mentioned 1. But tell us a little bit about who you are.
I wrote a couple of books. My first book was called Happiness is Your Responsibility, and it was about the superpowers of happiness, and in particular, the neuroscience of happiness. And I wrote it because my mom was terminal and at end of life, and she was down and depressed and really not in a good place. And then one day, 5 days before she passed, she was in a great place for 5 days, happy and healthy and doing all these great things. And she looked at me and I said, "Well, what happened?" And she says, "Happiness is my responsibility. I understand
Wow.
that now. It's a superpower and I'm going to take hold of it." So that was the first book. The
Mm-hmm.
second book was Beyond Busy, or third book, Beyond Busyness. And it really had to do with my own addiction to
Yeah.
busyness. And, I tell multiple stories about it, but my big wake up call was one day when I came home from work and I was exhausted and ravenous and opened the cupboard to find anything to eat because there was no food in my home. And
Mm.
I found a stale bag of pistachio nuts and I chomped them down and they were delicious. And all of a sudden I felt this pulling on my legs. So I looked down and it's my cat saying, "Mommy, feed me, please. I'm hungry
Mm.
too." So I threw some kibbles
Yeah.
into his dish. I went over to the couch. I fell asleep. And a couple hours later, I wake up to this gagging noise and I look up and it's my cat again. This time he's throwing up pistachio nuts. And I look down and I'm like,
Oh.
"Oh dear, I just ate cat food for dinner." And it
Oh,
just
wow.
really made me realize what happens when you're in such a autopilot, burnt out haze. And I had other wake up calls. My husband left me because I wasn't spending enough time with him. I had a stress related heart attack. I missed out on a job. But honestly, it was the cat food that got me thinking, what other mindless things am I doing? And really put me in search of a way to escape time poverty, escape the hamster wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. I tell you what, you mentioned some things into I guess they all were a culmination of things, and the cat food was the big wake up. You mentioned that. So before you became Miss Busy Bee, who were you growing up and where did you get that work ethic? And I'll say work ethic because usually when you're busy, you're trying to, get things done. So how
Yeah.
did you get that work ethic, and was that something instilled in you as well?
Yeah, I mean, my father, came over from Germany. His
Mm,
parents had escaped a concentration camp. They came over
mm,
with nothing. My father, worked his way to learn English and to make a living and to do well. And this is all I saw, was a
yeah.
man who left the house at 7 a.m. and came home maybe at 8 o'clock. And he was usually in a crappy mood, really tired, really hungry, and
Yeah.
went to bed and did it all over again. And so, that work ethic I learned from my dad. And then I think just the power of I can do hard things, raise the bar. I can do hard things, raise the bar. I can do hard things, raise the bar.
Mm,
And you're continuously raising the bar and you're chasing the bar, but all of a sudden you realize you're missing out on what's important, the good
yeah.
stuff in life.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So when did you didn't really touch on this. I'm gonna ask you, when was the moment that you realized that busyness, it wasn't like a badge of honor? Because a lot of times you're busy. I remember I was in the army and this guy was showing me how to fake being busy, right? Because people appreciate you being busy. So he said, hey, Sergeant, all you have to do, and I don't have a folder right now, walk around with a folder and look frustrated. And when someone comes up to you, you're like, oh, I'm so busy, right? And then they'll respect that. But when did you realize that business wasn't a badge of honor, but a barrier to joy?
I realized that as soon as I started researching busyness. I'm a data
Okay.
geek and I make data driven decisions. So I spent about 12 years actually looking into a subject that I used to call busyness, but now I call it time poverty because our hustle society,
Mm,
we love being busy, but we don't
yeah.
like not having time for what's important. So I kind of changed that
Mm,
a little bit, but as I researched, what I learned was that 96% of the population is just like me. They end their day without enough time for what's important. I also learned that 64% of the population overstuffs their calendar, so they can't even get to the real work until after work, which creates this horrible
mm,
cycle of working all the time. And then 75% of individuals don't have time for basic self-care, like getting your teeth cleaned, eating lunch, getting a
yeah.
good night's sleep. And so I
Yeah.
just kept on researching, and all this data just kept on saying busyness doesn't mean productivity. Busyness doesn't mean health. Busyness doesn't mean happiness. Busyness doesn't equate to wonderful relationships and a good family life. So, whether it was in the workplace or at home, busyness didn't equal the good stuff. So,
Yeah.
that's when I'm
Yeah.
like, holy crap, the data doesn't lie. So, I am gonna, go with the data. And I set out about 12 years ago to find a way to escape this time poverty. Originally it was for me. I was selfish. I was like, this isn't working. I don't know what to do. And that's when I started testing a few different processes and combinations of processes until I landed on what I call the busy busting framework, which works 97% of the time. And the big deal is that it worked for me. And so
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
teaching people how to escape time poverty because it does make you more productive, healthy, happy, the good stuff that you deserve.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your life like before this awareness, and what did your old normal look like?
My old normal would be get up early, go to the gym, go to work, be the first one in the parking lot, work really hard, never take breaks. I was a
Mm,
single mom, come home at around 6:30, make dinner for my son, help him with his homework, around
yeah.
9 o'clock, 9:30, go to bed. And it was just the hamster wheel over and
Yeah.
over and over again.
Mm, mm. I tell you what. It probably sounds similar to a lot of people who are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast right now. I remember this one, just to break it up, right? Because there's a lot of science and a lot of awareness, I guess, about the monotony of life, right? The rut, just doing the same thing over and over. And one of the things that he said was one of the strategies he said to kind of break it up a little bit was instead of just driving to work the same way you go all the time, like we got GPSs now, just turn off on the road, go a different direction, right? And let the GPS get you there just to kind of break things up. Plus it's kind of safe too, because you never know when people out there watching you and seeing your normal routine, right? This is the world we're in. But what do you think are some strategies to kind of break up that monotony? And you talked about, what was it called again? The brain buster. What was that term?
My busy busting framework has 3
Busy
steps.
busting.
And
Okay.
one of them is what I call values vibing. And you talk about breaking it up. But what I learned was that time management doesn't work, right? We're all
Mm,
into time management, but 96% of us don't have time for what's important. So what do we do? How do we make yes or no decisions? And what I
yeah.
figured out is when we make yes or no decisions based on our values, what's important to us, that's when we really step into our power. And so I started teaching a lot about values management, but I'd be like, what are your values? And they look at me like I was absolutely crazy because it was so esoterical. So
Yeah.
then I did research. I researched about 20,000 people to understand what values lead to the end of the day, making us feeling like our cup is full. We had great quality of life that day. And it turns out that there are 4. One of them is what I call energy management and self
Mm,
care. One of them is human connection. Another one is growth, learning something new. My father always used to say, puts a day without learning something new is a lost opportunity. And he's right, because when we do things differently, we flex our resiliency muscle and we learn we can do hard things. And then the
mm.
last thing is just authenticity and making sure you're true to you, but that you're also living a life where you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you understand the concept of better together. And when we work
Yeah.
together, we actually can do really hard things.
You learned a pretty solid and valuable lesson from your mom on her deathbed about happiness being a personal responsibility. Did that moment right there, was that the catalyst, or you heard it at that moment and then later on something else hit? Like, what led you to that conclusion
No, I
that
mean, the grief
your
of my mother
responsibility?
dying, it definitely took over. She died so young. She died such a
Mm,
horrific death. It was bad, and
yeah.
I had to settle into that. And then I started thinking about happiness and how our society
Mm,
says happiness, it's a destination, it's a place. I'm going to be happy when I get the job, when I go on
mhm.
vacation, when I get a car, like all of these what ifs. But what if happiness wasn't a destination? What if happiness was a series of micro moments we create for ourselves? So I started doing these little things that I call happiness rituals, where they
Okay.
would take no more than 3 to 4 minutes. But what I learned is that when you're happy, your brain lights up like a Christmas tree and it sends neurotransmitters to your body saying, you've got more energy. You can fight off chronic disease. You have ability to focus. You're more charismatic. You're in a better mood. Like all this good stuff. And I'm like, so all right, what if we create happiness rituals throughout the day? And from
Yeah.
that point on, I started doing that. And then I wrote a book about that. And mojo making is step 2 of my busy busting process. And it's about creating intentional acts of joy. And, they work in the
Mm,
workplace, they work for individuals, they improve
mhm.
productivity. When I worked at United Healthcare, we brought it into the workplace and their metrics improved 33% first call resolution. So, It improves your metrics. It's just really cool, fun stuff. Your engagement.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me an example of one micro what is it called? Micro happy what is it?
I call them happiness rituals, and they're just micro
Happiness
moments you
rituals.
create.
Yeah.
So
I
for
need to
me,
write
I'm
this
not a
down.
morning person. So every morning I put on my fuzzy pink slippers and I put on some really fun music, many times pink. I love pink. And I just have a
Mhm.
dance party for 2 or 3 minutes by
Nice.
myself, and it lights me up.
Nice.
And then again at 11 a.m., I'll eat a couple of pieces of dark chocolate. I'll smell it. I'll
Mm.
unwrap it. I'll close my eyes and I'll be like, so good. And it's like pushing the reset button. And it turns out it works for everyone. So
Mm.
it's kind of like, what can you do that doesn't take time, take money, is low resources? It could be going outside and feeling the sun on your face, or it could be like saying a mantra like, I got this.
Yeah.
It can be a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a great technique. I like it. I never did it intentionally. Right? At times I'll do I'll just start dancing with the dog or whatever. And it does make you feel good. It does make you feel good. I have to look at the happiness rituals and try to employ like, how often do you do that? So you said, like, maybe 2, 3 times a day? Once a
Y-
day? Like, what's a good
Yeah, yeah,
for
usually
you?
4 times a day.
4
I
times a
love
day.
walking at night. That's a longer happiness ritual, but it
Yeah.
feels really great. And then,
Mhm.
yeah, I do it first thing in the morning, mid morning, mid afternoon, and at night. I do 4 a day.
How do you what do you think about storytelling? What your mind tells you, the stories your mind tells you in the relationship between that and happiness and
Yeah,
whatever.
I kind of feel like our minds sometimes are monkey minds, right? They're monkey brains and all this chatter is going on, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily a true story. It's not
Mm,
necessarily, you know, reality. It's just a story we're telling ourselves. So I like to kind of go outside myself and say, is this really true? Or are you just being hard on yourself? Or, if I'm going through stress, I'll ask myself, is this a micro stress or a macro stress? And if it's a micro stress, one that's like gonna disappear in a couple of weeks, it's just inconvenient and makes me frustrated. I'm like, well, why bother expending energy on it? It's not gonna matter in 2 weeks.
mm,
So, I do a lot of this like reality check with the things I'm thinking and realize I have control over what I'm thinking. So I really try to, repack myself.
yeah, yeah. That's sometimes it's hard, man, because your mind is so convincing. It's you, right, telling you stuff, so you believe it. What you said you like to pull yourself out and really assess. How difficult was that initially for you? I know it's probably for me it was difficult because I didn't even know what was going on until I knew what was going on. And now it's easier for me to like, is this worth my energy? Is this worth my effort? Right now to run down this rabbit hole. These are all things that may happen in the future. May, probably won't, maybe it probably will. I don't know, right? But for you, how long did it take and relatively right now? It took 16 months did it take for you to really stop mastering or trying to at least recognize that your mind is doing this
Yeah,
and then
I
stop it and then
really
assess?
do everything in micro steps. I'm a big, what I call micro stepper. Take a baby step, see how it feels. If it feels good, take another one
Yeah.
and another one. And so that's what I did for me. We didn't talk about step one, which is
Mhm.
about eliminating low value activities. We all get stuck in these things called busy traps, and we don't even realize it. The other day, I was into an Excel spreadsheet and I was moving and a grooving and doing what if formulas, and I was in my zone. And I hear this
Mhm.
knock, knock at the door, and it's my husband. You got a minute, dear? And I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm in the middle of this Excel spreadsheet. But do I do that? I'm like, "No, dear, whatever. How can I help you?" And he comes in and he
Yeah.
proceeds to tell me we're out of ketchup. Our burgers are not gonna have ketchup. Well,
That's
the world didn't end, but what it did do was it pulled me away from my activity. That
mhm.
interruption, it took me about 17 minutes to remember the what if formula I was doing, to remember exactly where I was and to get back into the zone. And so you've got to learn what your busy traps are. And once you learn them and you can eliminate them, you're not mindlessly wandering through life. And there are
Right.
so many busy traps, social
Yeah.
media doom
Oh,
scrolling, getting caught in the email rabbit hole. It just goes on and on.
yeah. Yeah. You mentioned too, that just hit me right in the stomach. That social media, I don't like to go on there, but I love looking at those little clips, the reels. So I do get caught on there, and I tell my wife, "Oh, I just don't do it. I just don't get on it unless I have the time to do it." And that is pretty cool. That Because that resonates with me too. I get on it, I'm doing these Excel spreadsheets, or you're counting something, or you're doing whatever it is, dealing with a bunch of data, and then you don't want to lose that rhythm, that flow, because you're going to, maybe I have to start all over again. Because once you start going down that rabbit hole, but what's more important? And it's not that the ketchup is more important. It's your husband, right? Is a little more important than what's going on at that moment. So I really appreciate that, and hopefully, anyone who's looking and listening, will appreciate that as well. We get busy and we work, and that is important. I'm not saying that that's not important, but family is important, friends are important, your health is important, so I think, and I'm just piggybacking off of Peggy here, we need to make sure that we're mindful of all these things. We need to make sure that we're mindful and don't get stuck in that busy trap, because it is enticing and it is so fulfilling at the moment, but it's not productive
It's
half the time.
addictive too.
Yeah, yeah.
What I learned about busyness, besides the fact that our hustle society tells us busyness is good, it's a status symbol, it's a sign of importance. That doctor, you can't get in to see
Mhm.
him for 8 months, but he must be really, really, really good. But,
Mm,
in terms of addiction, we normally feel like addiction are drugs, alcohols, pills, but an addiction, as described by the American Psychiatric Association, is anything that keeps you from what you should be doing, what you
mm,
want to be doing, what you need to be doing. And because of this addiction, it's like an itch. You just got to scratch it. You can't help yourself. And so that's why the mojo making is so important, because that high we get from crossing something off the list, even if it
mm.
is just emptying the garbage can, we feel good. Oh my God, I emptied the garbage can. Yay, me.
I
But,
know that's right.
that's why the happiness rituals, because it is, neurological.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, have you ever had the, situation where you had to say no to a big opportunity in order to protect your own peace?
Yeah, I can think of one where I'm a speaker and I had been speaking. It was last December, 3 weeks solid. I was running around the country and I had a conference that I really wanted to go. And there were a lot of people I knew that were going to be there. And I was tired and I was burnt out. So I decided not going to this conference. Something's gotta give. I gotta,
Mm,
kinda get my energy back, and one more week of being in another city, in a hotel, it just wasn't what I needed.
yeah, yeah. That's important. That's one of those busy things. I tell you what. But, in the same breath, Peggy looked at the opportunity. She's been traveling, doing all of these different, speaking engagements. And, that one right there, you saw it weighing. All right, balance health, mental health, physical health versus another. opportunity to speak to a group of people, right? So, and you have to make those decisions, right? But just always remember that your health matters. So we want to keep that in the forefront of our minds because if you're not healthy, if you're not able to get out there and do it, you're definitely not going to make these trips, right? So think about the long term instead of the immediate. I think that's important as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. I mean, we all have a flow state, and our flow
Yeah,
state
yeah,
is when we're in our thrive state. And it only happens when we eat, sleep, rest. I mean, that's how we get the most done. That's how we're productive. We think,
yeah.
oh my God, all the people that say, I'll sleep when I'm dead or I'll sleep when I'm 6 foot under. Let me tell you, sleeping is when all the big ideas come.
Mm,
Sleeping is when you repair your body, repair your energy.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, sleep. I tell you what, you said 9:30 earlier. That's pretty much when I'm going to sleep every night. I just have to do it. Hey, so how do you help others recognize when they're using busyness to avoid discomfort or self-reflection? And go ahead, and then I'll add something to it.
No, I mean, quite honestly, I think busyness is escape, right?
Yeah.
When something's bothering us, we want to be busy, take our mind off it, but it's often better to process it. And I'll give you a great example. My sister is really sick.
Hmm.
She's 1 year older than me, and both our parents are gone. And I only have a sister who's blood, and she's really sick. And I'm sad because she could be looking at end of life or just there none of the scenarios are good, at
Yeah,
each
yeah.
scenario, she could die on the operating table and everything. And so, I made myself really busy during that time, but that didn't really help me escape the sadness or,
Hmm.
how I was feeling. So instead, I tried to talk to myself and say, can anything good come of this? And then I started thinking, you know what? I talk to her every day. I wasn't doing
Mm,
that before. We're now super close, and I just try to flip the switch and flip my perception or my perspective to just try and find a little good in it. And yes, it's still tragic, and yes, it's still horrible, and it still eats me up. But
mhm.
I think about the fact that we've gotten closer, and I talk to her every day. That makes me happy.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you all have come and gotten closer through that because that is one of those things you don't want to see your sister, your family member, your friend. You want to remember them, that vitality, all the things that they were, and now they're at this state, and it's discomforting for you. But you being there for them could be comforting to them. And then them being there for you could be comforting to you, right? So it's good that you got to that resolution and you're doing because I see so many people who just run away from it. I don't want
Yeah,
to deal with it. I don't want to see
Helper's
them like
High
that.
Helper's
Yeah.
High is real. We don't think it is, but it is
Mm.
real. Helping somebody else brings
Yeah.
joy to ourselves. So in times of uncertainty and frustration and chaos, I always say do something nice,
Mm.
and it could be so stupid. Like yesterday, I had a woman behind me in the grocery store who was obviously aging and struggling a little bit, and she moved really slowly, and she only went to the grocery store and bought like 4 or 5 items. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to stay, keep my credit card, pay for her, right?
Mhm.
Oh my God. I mean, $10.37. That's all I spent. But I made this woman's day. She had
Yeah.
tears in her eyes. She was so happy.
Yeah.
And then everybody in the grocery store was like, oh my God, what just happened? And people started applauding. And it was this moment where everybody lit up. And it was just a small little thing.
Mm. That's a it's a small little thing. And then that's the key point. But it had such a humongous impact, a big impact on them because I had that same experience. I was that lady that you helped. And I remember I was sitting in a restaurant, and I don't know what they thought. Well, I know what they thought. I was in uniform. I was in my military uniform. I was eating lunch. And when I got up to leave, someone had paid. I don't know who they were. They paid. They said, "Oh, your lunch is already paid for." And I was like, "Who did it?" And they left. And I was like, "Oh, you can do that?" I love telling this story. You can do that. So that impacted me. So the next time I saw an aging lady, she was sitting by herself at a restaurant. I got up. I said, "Hey, is she with someone?" And they was like, "No, she's here by herself." I said, "Okay, just whatever it is, you keep my credit card number, pay for her meal." And I left. I didn't know you could do that, right? And that makes me feel good, and hopefully it makes that person feel good as well. For you, it was such an amazing impact because you lit that seed, or you put that seed into other people, all the people who were applauding, into their head as well, because they probably felt just like I did. Oh, I didn't know we still did that. That we could do nice things to people, for
Yeah,
people.
I think
Yeah.
during COVID, we sort of, got into a self-protective mode
Oh
and
yeah.
haven't quite been able to figure our way out. And I just believe, be good, do good, make the world a better place. And when you
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
that, you get this energy from what you do that is just it's like a ripple effect on everybody around you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. All right. Powerful stories. Powerful. I love it. Hey, what about this scenario? You have this thing and you believe it's going to be difficult to do. It's many steps, many phases to finishing it, and you don't even really want to tackle it. Say it's that spreadsheet that you're working on with the what ifs and breaking it down, all of that. You don't want to deal with it because it's going to take some time. So you do all this other busy stuff. You check this off, check this off, check this off, check this off. But this is the more impactful thing. How do you how do you relay that, or how do you look at that and help your clients out, or the people you're speaking to? How do you make that resonate to stop
Yeah, I
being so
mean,
busy?
you think about it, like, I remember I'm kind of a crazy wild person. I can
Mhm.
remember, it was right after my husband left me, I decided I was gonna run a marathon. Well, I
Mm.
decided this in October. The marathon was December, and it was the end of October in Buffalo, New York. So there was like snow everywhere. And I decided I'm gonna train for a
Yeah.
marathon. I never ran before, right? So
Uh-huh.
what I kept on telling myself is just go run 1 mile. Just
Yeah.
one, then come home. Next day, just run two. That's it. Next day, just run three. Take a rest. And it made me realize how micro steps add up. These small little baby steps, and we can all do a micro step. And then we
Mhm.
can also
Mhm.
learn that maybe what we're frightful of or don't want to do can actually be fun. And,
Mm.
for me, running in the snow in Buffalo, New York, and finding places that were shoveled where I actually could run, it
Yeah, yeah.
became like a, magical mystery tour to find these places, these parks that actually shoveled. And, I could actually run 5 miles by sticking on their trail. And so, I have a good friend, Josh Slinkner, and he always says, just find a way, just find a way. And I
Mm.
really believe that because I really believe there is a way for everything. There is something small you can do, and you just got to try it and do it. And if it doesn't work, so what? Try something else.
I applaud you because I was stationed in Hawaii, and then I got transferred to upstate New York, Fort Drum, in the middle of the winter. And I was running, in formation. I kept falling out the run. I kept falling out. So I'm feeling bad about this. And I go to my first sergeant and I was like, "Hey, first sergeant, how do you run here? How do you run in this environment?" And he's like, "Don't worry about it, sergeant. It'll get warm soon." So I say I applaud you because you got out there, and though I had to run, I just wasn't running up to the standards of that unit at that time. For you to get out there, did you do the marathon?
I did do the marathon. It
See, that's
was
crazy.
quite
2 months.
2 months, yeah.
Yeah.
And what I learned through that was that I could do hard things, and every time life gets hard, I remind myself I learned
Yeah.
how to run a marathon. I ran a marathon. I actually ran several, and it just made me realize that you can do anything you set your mind to.
Yeah, 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 I like it. Hey, okay, so let's get back to a little bit of busyness. And for professionals who feel it doesn't even have to be professionals, for people who just feel guilty when they're not doing, they just aren't doing something. What advice would you offer for them?
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend down the street. Her name is Jenna. I'm always storytelling, but I feel as though when people hear real examples from other people, they
Mhm.
realize how doable this is. So I've got a next door neighbor who lives about 4 houses down, and her daughter calls me. Her daughter calls me and she says, Mommy's on the floor and she can't get up. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. So I run over there, I run in the house, and her mom had tripped over 3 weeks of laundry. She hadn't done laundry. So her head was kind of on the laundry basket, and her eyes were closed, and she had just given up. She's like, I am
Mm,
exhausted. I'm a single mom. I've got 3 kids. I've got a really good job. I just have no time for self care, no time. And she just had this horrible, horrible downslide, and I looked at her and I said, "Do you have 5
yeah.
minutes?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Tomorrow morning, just get up 5 minutes earlier. That's it. Spend 5
Mm,
minutes, go out on the back porch, have a cup of coffee, just 5 minutes, nothing more." Check with her in a week. She's like, "Yeah, my mornings are less hectic. That's really helped me." I'm like, "Okay, so you added 5 minutes to your day." She said, "But yeah, then I'm in the office and everything breaks. Everything breaks. And
mm,
all of a sudden, everybody needs me and it's hustle, hustle, hustle and interruptions and email and it's just horrible." And I'm like, "Well, so do you take any breaks during the day?" She's like, "Absolutely not. There's no time to. I gotta be at daycare at 5:30." So I'm like, "Take a 10-minute lunch, just 10 minutes. Go outside and feel the sun on your face and eat something, but only take 10 minutes, no more." So she
mhm,
did that, and she's like, "This is great. I have more energy during the mornings, during the afternoon, but I can't sleep." I'm like, "Well, what are you doing before you go to bed?" And she's like, "Well, I'm writing my things to do list." And
mhm.
I'm like, "Does
Thinking
that
about
stress
tomorrow.
you out?" She says, "Yeah." Well, why are you doing that before you want to go to bed when you're trying to be blissful and restful? It just doesn't make sense. So she started keeping a gratitude journal. All of a
Mm,
sudden, so this whole practice added 20 minutes to her day. That's it. 20 minutes. Changed her life. 20 minutes
mm.
a day. So you do the micro steps. Do the little micro step.
Micro steps. All right, you heard it. Little micro steps. Look where you can improve your day, right? I know we used to when I'm at work, there's always a lot going on. And we have these major projects going on, and I remember my guy I used to work with, Jason. We would always turn around, look at each other, and be like, "All right, let's go." So we would go. We just go for a walk. Just go for a walk, just disconnect for a little bit, and feel the outdoors, feel the air, to have a good conversation. But when we came back in, we're ready to go for it again. We're ready to tackle it again, full force, and we'd get through the day. But taking that moment, you think you can't take that time because you don't have time, but you do. Unless you don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't.
It
Sometimes you just
actually
don't.
is so easy to push the reset button, and you push it by
Yeah.
doing nothing for 3 or 4 minutes. That's how you reset.
That's even easier. Yeah. Just take a yeah, I like it. I like it. All right, I told you I was in the military. So
Uh-huh.
I gotta ask a question for my service members. Many of us struggle with adjusting to a slower, sometimes slower, civilian pace after years of high stakes structure. What would you say to a veteran who feels lost without the constant go, go, go? This is different. It's like the flip side of it.
Yeah, I think the structure isn't bad. I believe in my flow state, and my flow state means doing the same things pretty much every day. I eat breakfast at the same time. I get up at the same time. I have a moment with my fur baby at the same time. So it doesn't mean that you can't have structure. And some people crave structure. For other people, like not having the structure, it's like so great after having so much structure. My husband, who is 10 years younger than me, he retired a couple of years ago. So here I am working. He's retired. And for him, doing nothing but golf or watch TV, that's what he does. And he grocery shops and cleans, and God bless him for doing that because I hate it. But for him, he had no problem settling into it. For me, I'm probably gonna
Yeah,
work the rest of my life, but now I'm doing something. I'm not in corporate America. I loved corporate America, but now I'm working to help make the world a better place and help
yeah,
people escape time poverty, and it brings me joy. And so, I have a schedule, it's okay. I'm not going to beat
yeah,
myself up for having a schedule. I practice my speeches every single day for 45 minutes, no matter what. At 4 o'clock, I pull out one of my speeches and just practice a little bit, make sure my hand gestures, and is there any animation or video, or what can I do to make it better? And
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I hear
I'm
you.
an optimist.
I can tell. You're also an incredible storyteller, right? So, how has storytelling helped you stay accountable to your own values?
When I first started on this path, I told a lot of stories about myself to let people know that I can relate to what you're going through.
Mhm.
And then as I started helping other people, their stories actually inspired other people. So I story tell to let people know how doable taking these micro steps are. They're just doable.
Mhm.
And people need to know that it's not about, this big, huge change that's really hard. It's just like leaning a little bit into something, trying it out. And it
Yeah.
usually works. And so you do more of it, and then it's life changing. So I don't know, I just have always been that person that sees the glass half full, and
Mhm.
I believe that there's opportunity in the good and the bad, and you just need to find that opportunity to figure
Yeah.
out where it is. Like my sister, how could her health demise be positive in any way, But yet it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I'm an optimist too. I believe things will turn out okay. You do get caught up in some pretty impending doom looking, right, going on, right? But I still look for the positive in it all. So I can agree with that. That is a mindset, and I don't pretend to know everybody's mind or their experiences or what they've gone through. And some people have just gone through things that make them a pessimist, right?
Yeah.
Because things have happened to them or they've seen things. Um, so how do you really and I know what you're gonna say, micro steps, right?
No,
But
I'm
how
not
do you
gonna. What I'm gonna say for me is I think about what's bringing me down or frustrating me or creating chaos,
Mhm.
and I ask myself, can I control it? If
Mm,
the answer is no, then I'm like, well, how can I take back control? Well, just how I deal with it. It is
yeah,
happening. My sister is sick. She's probably
yeah,
dying. It is happening. There's nothing I can do about that. But what can I control? Spending some quality time with her.
yeah,
So I just believe that you can always find something small you can control that will, make you feel like you're in control instead of the
mhm.
world controlling you. You control your life.
Beautiful, beautiful advice. Beautiful advice. That is the key. Can I control it? If I can't, then how do I get through it? How do I deal with it? How can I be impactful to lessen the blow or whatever it is, right? But be that optimist, be that glass half full. I love it. So let's talk about She Can. How did
She
it come to
can.
life?
She
How did it come to
can.
life?
I
Yeah.
started a nonprofit right after my father died because I earned this much money and I wanted to do something good with it.
Hmm.
And I am actually shutting down She Can because of my platform for speaking and writing. And, I realize that I can't do it all and I need to choose my lane. But She Can is an amazing organization. We're gonna have a big event,
Hmm.
and then we're just gonna close the doors, and we helped a lot of women step into their power. But, for me, I need to make sure that I'm what I'm doing is doable. And having the nonprofit, which takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources, it's hard to balance that with being an author, being a speaker, doing workshops, doing coaching. It was just too much, and so I had to make a decision to basically say to myself, "Okay, Peggy, it's all good, but pick your lane. You need to pick your lane."
Mm. Another valuable lesson.
Mhm.
You live in your lessons. I love it. You can't do it all. You can't do it all. But how can you be most effective? And you picked your lane. I love it. I love it. What's one belief that you used to hold that you've completely let go of now?
One belief that I used to hold that I completely let go of.
Yeah. You might have just said I can do it all. You
You
ran
know,
him. You got you.
I think the belief is that we're better together. You
Mm,
know, I think so many times I think I can do it all, but when you ask for help or when you get another opinion, you see a different vantage point and it makes it so you can see things from multiple perspectives and solve a problem or get to a finish line a lot easier. So I think, I used to be very independent and I ask for help now. And I like to get
yeah.
other people's perspectives because it makes me see things I can't see on my own.
Mm, great answer. Great answer. And I just talked about this yesterday in the military. They're always preparing the next leader, right? So it's always about leadership development. And one of the things that I still remember is when you're telling somebody something to do. Hey, Peggy, I need you to move these. And I'll use the same example. I need you to move these rocks from A to B. And I know how I would do it, right? Whatever moving rocks to A to B would look like. Right now, in this age, I'd probably get a wheelbarrow or something because I'm not, something easy. But what they tell me to do is don't tell them how to do it. You know, let them do it. Because what you're going to have is an opportunity, one, for them to take ownership and accountability for the actions that they're performing right now. And two, more selfishly and specifically, it gives you an opportunity to see a different way that it can be
Mhm.
done. It broadens
That's
your,
beautiful. I love that.
yeah, yeah. So just hearing you say that, I mean, just in what you said, I love that too, because you think you can do it all. Let's ask help. It doesn't make you weak. That makes you strong. That makes everyone strong. That pulls
Yeah,
everyone
I
into
mean,
it.
I don't cook and clean and do laundry or any of that stuff. My husband does. It's very non-traditional, but
Hmm.
I reached a point where I realized I didn't like doing that stuff, and so I asked for help, and when he
Yeah.
retired, I'm like, "Well, I could use some help because I love what I'm doing and I want more time to do it. I don't want to be cooking and cleaning and doing laundry and all that stuff, but it's got to be done." So I
Yeah.
asked him for help. And, now he does all of that all the time. And it
Yeah.
actually makes him feel good because,
Yeah.
he says, "It's my job to support you." And
Yeah.
I'm like, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. You got that balance. You're always supporting each other. So that's a beautiful, beautiful segue. Hey, it's not even a segue because now I'm just going to give this to you. What's something that I didn't ask that you wish I had asked you?
In summary, what is the three-step busy busting process?
There you
Because
go.
it's something that everybody should try to lean into. Step one is about subtraction, eliminating low value activities. We all have a ton of them. We don't see them, they're habitual. But when you get rid of them, you have more time for what's important. Step two is mojo making, and it's about creating these intentional acts of joy. And step three is no longer leaning into time management, but leaning into values management. And, to some extent, there are things we have to do when we're asked to do them. But if you can make more decisions by what's important to you, that is a great way to get to the end of your day saying, I had time for what was important.
Hmm. Hmm. I like number two. I like mojo making. That makes you feel good. But you got to do it because you want to do it,
It's fun.
right?
I absolutely love getting out of bed in the morning, putting my fuzzy pink slippers on, turning on the radio. I'll go in the bathroom so I don't wake my husband. I'll blare the music and I'll have a dance party for one. And it's just
Mm.
like, gets me going.
I love it. I don't get the opportunity to do that. Maybe I can set my alarm for 5. But my dog, I don't know, this sucker is up all day, all night. So he's usually waking me up 5:30 every morning. I set my alarm for 5 and he'll chill. But 5:30 is like, all right, get up. We gotta go.
Well, he
So
wants to
so
eat.
yeah. Well, no, he wants to go out. He wants to go
Oh,
outside. He wants to see, he wants to sniff, he wants to check his social media, you know, when he gets outside. So I do find joy. And I'm usually like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't want to get up. But once I get out there and to the point of when you're working and you're busy,
mhm.
take a moment, disconnect. Because when I get out there, I feel so much better. And I always thank him. He doesn't hear me, but I thank him. I really appreciate you because if you were not here waking me up, getting me out, I would not be out walking. I would not be out enjoying this moment right now, reconnecting,
Yeah.
disassociating with all the busyness, right? And just finding a bit of peace before you tackle the day. So yeah, 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 man, I love it. I love your stories, by the way. And you haven't even really given me the oomph. Like I haven't really tasted everything that you got to offer, Becky. But I love the stories and I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing, your personal stories, right? And I wish the best. Prayers out for your sister as well.
Thank you.
And finally, before we get going, how can the listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, they can go to my website, and that's peggysullivanspeaker.com. They can get with me on LinkedIn, Peggy Sullivan Speaker. They can buy my book and read all about it. It's on Amazon. It's called Beyond Busyness.
Hmm.
I love people and I love helping people, and there is a world beyond busyness. And the reality is we can achieve more by doing less. That's counterintuitive, but I'm going to say it
It's
again. We
not.
can achieve more by doing less. And that's really a simple, beautiful thing.
I hear that all the time. I try to convey that as well. For me right now, in a different way, I try to automate things.
Yeah,
If I
I
can
did lean
automate,
into AI and now I'm a big
not
proponent
even,
of it.
yeah,
Big
not even
proponent.
AI, not even AI so much, just automating the process, like using a CRM to do some things instead of manually having to go in. Is this some CRM something that can happen? And then AI is just took it. That's a whole nother step of automation as well. So I appreciate that. Anything else about AI? Do you use it? You've leaned
Nothing
into it?
else, nothing else about AI.
All right, Peggy, thank you so much for your energy, your honesty, and your mission to help us stop confusing being busy with being fulfilled. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Hey, and for the listeners, if you found value in this conversation, and I know you did, I know I did, don't forget to subscribe to Hindsight the Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you tune in. And we've got more game-changing guests on the way. And until next time, stay present, stay grounded, and always strive to be more. I'll talk to you next time. Hey, thanks for joining me here on Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. And while I have you here, why don't you take your mouse, go over and click on that subscribe button. No, not right there. Over to the right. Down, right there. Boom. Thank you. Now, thank you for subscribing to Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones.